The first stop is Plymouth, Massachusetts for the site of King Philip's War. King Philip's War started in 1675 and ended in 1678. The first part of the battle was at a colony named Swansea. It is thought that King Philip himself rested here when hard pressed by his enemies. The next stop is the site of the French and Indian War. This was in 1689 to 1763 between the French and the British for possession of North America. Fort Ligonier was built by British engineers, but this fort was unsuccessfully attacked by a large French force as General Forbes made his way to capture Fort Duquesne during the French and Indian War. Next, we will travel to North Carolina. The Tuscarora War began in 1711 when the Tuscarora chief attacked settlements, killing hundreds of settlers and their farms. The war ended in 1713. Constructed by a Native American tribe fighting in the war, Fort Neohiroka is built in what is now Greene County, North Carolina. In March of 1713, the fort was attacked by a colonial force. The Battle of Tippecanoe began in 1811 on the Wabash and Tippecanoe Rivers in Indiana. This war began when the brother of Tecumseh attacked the Indiana Territory governor's force. After combat, the natives left. In Battle Ground, Indiana, in 1811, General William Henry Harrison led his troops into battle against Tecumseh's Native American Confederation. There is now a museum in the park that tells the story of the battle, and there is an 85-foot-tall marble obelisk monument to the Battle of Tippecanoe. In Georgia and Alabama in 1814, the Creek War broke out. Men under Andrew Jackson broke the power of the Creek Raiders who had attacked settlers. On August 30th, in 1813, Fort Mims was attacked. Hundreds of Red Stick warriors led by William Weatherford attacked the fort. The commander of the fort was then killed as he tried to close the gate. In northern Illinois and southwest Wisconsin, the Black Hawk War began in 1832. Here was an unsuccessful attempt by the Sauk and Fox tribes to move back to their homeland. The Black Hawk State Historic Site is bordering the Rock River in Rock Island County, Illinois. This site commemorates Native Americans of the area who lived there from about 1750 to 1831. In 1832, 1,500 Sauk and Meskwaki, led by the warrior Black Hawk, returned to plant crops, precipitating a 15-week conflict known as the Black Hawk War. Their defeat marked the passing of Native Americans from Illinois. From 1855 to 1856, attacks on Rogue River Valley people occurred. The intentions were to start a war that would employ miners. Unfortunately, the Indian survivors were forced out of their reservations. In late 1855, the inhabitants of an Indian village were massacred by a group of settlers. Part of the Indian population gathered at Fort Lane for protection, while the remainder declared war on the settlers. In 1876, in Rosebud Creek, Montana, powers under Crazy Horse cut off reinforcements that might have aided General Custer at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. This National Historic Landmark, called Rosebud Battlefield, is on the rolling prairie of eastern Montana. It preserves the site of the June 17, 1876 Battle of the Rosebud. In Montana, on that same year, General Custer confronted the Sioux warriors and were eventually wiped out during the fight, which is known as Little Bighorn. The Little Bighorn Battlefield memorializes the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry and the Sioux and Cheyenne in one of the Indians' last armed efforts to preserve their way of life. The last stop is in South Dakota in 1890. Bigfoot took control of the final crew of the Sioux. Unfortunately, they were trapped at Wounded Knee Creek and massacred by the U.S. Army. On December 29, 1890, this was the scene of the last major clash between Native Americans and U.S. troops in North America. Intercepted by U.S. troops, Native Americans have given themselves up and had been escorted to an Army encampment on Pine Ridge Reservation when shooting